Good morning. Thank you, DG. Good morning to the honourable members. My name is Sharif Baker, the convener and chairperson for the Ministerial Advisory Team. Together with me here today is my members, my colleagues.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes, Honourable Mhlongo.
Can we see Mr. Baker? Is he a person or not? Can we see his face and then he'll switch off? I did not see his face.
Can you take this presentation of the DG out of our screen? Shall? Yes. There he is. You can continue, Mr. Convener, Sharif Baker.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate. My apologies, honourable members. I should have switched on my camera right from the beginning. Be that as it may, I'm here in front of you now, together with my colleagues, Mr. China Mpololo, Mr. Tobela Dlamini, Mr. Gabby Leroux, Joy Mbawena, and unfortunately, Nozi Dlamini is not able to join us today. She's the only member that's not here. I do need to take note that, as we know from the previous presentation, Joy Mbawena may not be able to come in consistently because of network challenges. Likewise is the challenge with Tobela Dlamini. As the DG has inferred to and indicated, the MAT was created out of challenges that our sector has been facing up until January, February, and still to today, of trying to operate, work, and live, quite honestly, for the last 15, 16 months. And because of there being a disjointed communication between the sector and the department, the minister decided obviously to put together a team to bridge that gap, as the deputy minister has indicated, so that we could speak with one language and one voice in trying to assist our sector with the challenges that's facing us because of the pandemic. As the DG has indicated, we have been put together not because we were looking for specifically to reopen the sector. That is obviously something that we are trying to do under control circumstances, but also to look at the realities of the challenges that the creative sector has been facing from day one of the pandemic and the lockdown. And as the DG indicated, one of the very first missions that we were involved with is to remove the bottlenecks and resolve challenges, and also assist the department with fast-tracking the third phase of relief funding, which included engaging with the sector with challenges of communication, with documentation. And that's something that the MAT, because of understanding our sector intimately, and most of us in our team knowing many of our artists, we were able to involve ourselves in trying to assist in to making sure our sector was compliant in submitting all their applications. The MAT was also quite involved with the department in engaging with SARS to try and assist and temporarily adjust the criteria of tax compliance, rather than being just so that you are registered, and rather than just being compliant, so that you could apply and attain relief from the department and from government. But also, other than that, to bring in extra resources to try and assist the processing of applications, over and above the specific work streams that were put together via terms of reference that was put together by the sector holistically at the conferences of the Freedom Park engagement, which took place on the 17th of February and the 25th of February. Lulama, if you can go to the next slide, please.
The slides are stuck. Can I just stop sharing and I'll try and share again?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you. I think the next slide does speak to colleagues and honourable members. It does speak to specifically the work streams that were put together as per the terms of reference. There are 5 work streams. The 5 work streams speak to banking and landlords portfolio, and I'm actually going to get to that one last. It spoke to the wellness portfolio, a school fees portfolio, a retail and transport portfolio, and the private and corporate sector portfolio. Now, these were our specific tasks and requests to address from a form of relief for our sector. So I will start with the wellness portfolio, which was headed up and is headed up by Nozipho Dlamini and Joy Mbowena, as it rides on the back to the mental and physical and financial and business health of our sector through what we're going through. And with the creation of the Silapa wellness program via the Department of Sports and Arts and Culture, and with a service provider, we provided oversight and still provide oversight of the wellness for our sector, especially given our hands-on communication, engagement, and access to various members of the creative sector, whether it be artists, actors, dancers, choreographers, poetry readers, and the likes thereof. So the wellness program is still an ongoing program, and that is being headed up by Nozipho and Joy. We then have a school fees portfolio. And just to give you an understanding of why we decided to get involved with school fees, and again, this speaks specifically to government schools. Out of the 22,000 government schools in the country, around 3,000 of them are still school paying fees-paying schools, especially because of them being focus schools. And what was happening was two things. Either our children were being bullied because of their parents not being able to pay school fees, and it trickling down from one school child to another and the bullying thereof, as well as whether it be the school themselves via the Bursa or with the SGB, school governing body, sending out and harassing and dictating to some of our creative sector that can't afford to pay school fees for obvious reasons. And this now became a mental challenge as well as a financial challenge for many of our creative sector. And that school fees portfolio was headed up and is headed up by Gabby LaRue. I am quite happy and excited to present that this has been resolved with communication with the Department of Basic Education, which could never have happened unless the Minister, Nathi Mthethwa, got involved by virtue of communication and linking us, the MAT, with the Ministry of the Basic Education, and with going all the way up to the DG as well as Chief Directorate, where we have now managed to succeed in communication out to the creative sector, and again, an initiative by the Minister, curated, created, and resolved by the Ministry advisory team, where all school fees for 2020 and 2021 have now been exempt for all creatives, as well as anybody else that has still under lockdown under level 0, until level 0, but we are speaking today purely about the creative and cultural industry. Obviously, it wasn't a blanket exemption. You still had to follow protocol with regards to whatever documentation and applications each school put into place for exemption, as well as providing portfolio of evidence that you are obviously from the creative sector. And this has become fruitful and has been a success for the MAT and for the department, but most importantly, for the creative sector. We then have a further portfolio, again headed up by Gabby LaRue, which is the retail and transport portfolio. This has been, it's still current and ongoing. There's still a lot of work that still needs to be done. It's been rather slow. And should you wish to ask specific questions, Gabby LaRue is with us a little later on as to where we are specifically. But an overview with regards to retail and transport is that we have engaged with many of some of the giant retailers, as in ShopRite, as in Pick n Pay, as in Clicks, where we are seeking assistance by way of food vouchers, food parcels, or if we're trying to curate some type of care card for the creative sector, that you could present to one of these retailers and at least purchase something under the current pandemic at cost at the very least. Likewise, this care card will be used on government transport so that our creative sector can either try and go and lobby for another job or go and see a family member or go to a hospital or get some time so that they are not stranded sitting at home. And that is a portfolio that is still current and still being worked with as we seek engagement with the Ministry of Transport, for that sector, but it's ongoing with regards to the retail. And it is a slow ongoing process purely because some of the retail sector is also struggling under the pandemic and under the Disaster Act. So it's a matter of communication that's still ongoing with regards to the specific work stream. Likewise, can be spoken about work stream number 5, which is the private and corporate sectors. It's being led by Mr. Tobelo Dlamini. And I say again, he will be able to answer any specific questions. I do assist him in this portfolio, and this portfolio is for us to approach corporate and private companies, as in telcos, as in big corporate companies, for assistance, either via guidance or either via financial insight, so that we are not relying heavily on government's coffers, which are limited for obvious reasons. So we are engaging with the private sector, again, under the leadership of the minister that issues a letter signed by him after it has been approved and ratified for us to engage with, for example, the telcos, again, where we are seeking assistance for data, for communication for our creative sector right now that aren't able to work, so that if we can try and get them allowed to be able to communicate, especially riding on the back that many of these corporate companies have made full use of the creative sector with ringer tunes and using our jingles on adverts and trying to entice public to purchase their product. We are now leveraging that via our engagements with the corporate and private sector. We have engaged with many corporates that have indicated their assistance and willingness. They are just looking at their financial year ends to see how they can assist us. So again, this is a process work stream that is turning, but it's turning rather slow because of financial year ends, and again, because of the pandemic. But there is a willingness to assist and work with us as the MAT because of us being represented, or because of us representing the Ministry and the Department of Sports and Arts and Culture, without which going there as just a creative association would have fallen on deaf ears. Finally, the work stream that both China and Polola and myself are heading up, and as much as it says banking and landlords, it is far more than that, because we are engaged with the Department of Labor, we are engaged with the Department of Trade and Industry, we are engaged with the Department of National Treasury, we have been engaged with the SA Banking Association, and we are engaged with SARS, and obviously the Department of Human Settlements and the Housing Tribunal and the COGTA. Now, I know these are a lot of departments that we're busy with, but they are all overlap with regards to this specific work stream. And one of the very first challenges our creative sector started experiencing was either the threat or actual eviction out of a home that they are living in, that they've been living in for many years. And obviously, under the Disaster Act and Regulation 73 and 74, there are certain protocols, rules, and regulations that assist with regards to avoiding any form of eviction. And this we've learned by engaging, doing research with COGTA, who guided us on a way forward. And then obviously under the custodian of the Department of Human Settlements, where we engaged with the Director General and assisted us with the Housing Tribunal, that there is documentation that has gone out to our creative sector as of just the first week of April, guiding them and showing them that there is ways that they can be protected from eviction from their homes. And this is ongoing because the communication goes out constantly to the far-reaching corners of South Africa, because even though we send it out to our constituents within the associations that we represent, there are many that are individuals that don't receive it quick and fast. And thus we are ongoing in assisting our creative sector with regards to the challenges of eviction. But what segues from landlords and evictions is into banking, because there are many homes that are owned by the banks. And unfortunately, banking, when we got involved with the bank sector, the creative sector is seen, and their terminology is called a moral hazard. And this has now been an ongoing challenge, because as much as a person may own a home, whether they're creative or not, with any form of default, the bank doesn't want to see any form of documentation or understand or accept Regulation 73 and 74, and thus are wishing to foreclose and repossess the home. And this is the challenges that we are engaging with them at the moment via the SA Banking Association that is assisting us, but under their protocols, rules and regulations, it's rather difficult. And for creatives to receive phone calls constantly for wanting to repossess homes or try and get back their money for their loans or cars and the likes thereof has become increasingly damaging to the mental and financial welfare of the creative sector. And thus we are still in constant engagement with the banking sector via National Treasury and via SARS, because they are all interlinked, especially from a SARS where we are trying to get temporary relief with regards to output VAT for companies or income tax payments for individuals. These are engagements that we have started speaking on with National Treasury and the SA Banking Association so that we can try and find relief. Unfortunately, again, these communications take long because many of the changes or the requests we are making affect policy. And policy changes is easier said than done because it does need to sit in front of government, whether it is under the Disaster Act or not. And this is ongoing. Likewise is our engagement with the Department of Labour, where over and above we have now had some success with regards to COIDA and to TERS relief. And we're quite happy that the Department of Labour has reciprocated. And again, because of the intervention via the MAT and via the Minister linking us to the Minister of Labour, we've had success in this regard. What we are still trying to forge forward on, and is something that the chair or one of the honourable members alluded to earlier on, with regards to the creatives being accepted as workers in the industry, and it's something we are currently engaged with the Department of Labour, and it goes all the way back from February, just before the pandemic, where the Department of Labour got involved with the creative industry, specifically the film and television industry, and engaged closely with SAGA, which is the South African Guild of Actors. But collectively, the creative industry has gotten together to see how we can stand together with one voice, with unity, to speak to the Department of Labour, to see how that can be adjusted. And now with the inclusion of the Ministerial Advisory Team under the leadership of the Minister, this landscape has changed because communication is now more transparent and apparent. Lastly, with that portfolio is the Department of Trade and Industry. I regret to inform you we have not been able to engage with the department as of yet because of their availability. And the reason why we are trying to engage with the Department of Trade and Industry is because they're the custodians of the National Credit Act and the National Credit Regulator with regards to what segues back to the banking sector. So a lot of work has been put in from the MAT and a lot of research to understand the challenges that we're going through. And this is coming from a sector that is predominantly known for being creative and putting a show on a theater or on the stage. But here we are learning, going through and speaking for ourselves, the creative sector, in an attempt to move forward to ensure that our creative sector can still try and operate and attain relief. Amongst these work streams, the biggest challenge was assisting the Department of Sports and Arts and Culture with success in making sure that third phase relief was executed with transparency and as expedient as possible. And that has now come to fruition, especially with the individual relief packages, which we have now accomplished. And we are now in the process of trying to accomplish the challenges with regards to organizations for relief. So that is our presentation, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to open up my screen. So thank you very much, Honourable Chair. That is our presentation from the Ministerial Advisory Team. I now welcome questions.